Welcome to this week's episode of Stirring a Bubbling Cauldron. After last week's deep dive into Hup science and how it relates to magic, were you feeling a little lost as to what to do with all that information? Well, believe me, you will not be left without practical applications. The one question I expected and didn't get, though, was, what? How can I use music to get into theta or delta when that frequency is below what the human ear can hear? Well, maybe you already knew the answer. You guys are so smart. Or maybe you picked up on the little hint I gave you, or maybe it just came through as a third language message because it was flowing all around us. But let me know your experiences from last week if you tried it, how it worked for you, and whether you got there. What method did you use to get from your normal waking state into that altered state? Many of you do it already as part of your practice. How do you usually do it? And how were your dreams last week? How were your daydreams? Any different experiences in your practice based on this expanded knowledge of what you're capable of? I mean, I got a first text message early the following morning saying it worked. But I want to hear more about your experiences and if you had any challenges understanding any part of the episode or getting there. Okay, so I know Drakina couldn't make it with us again this week, and I know she has some personal experiences that she wants to share too on the subject, so we'll save some of this conversation and specific methods of application for next week. In the meantime, keep working on experiencing those altered states and feeling connected to that wisdom using the Hup principles. Okay, so for this week, I want to talk about soul stealing. Soul stealing. Oh, that sounds really ominous. It kind of feels that way too. Like it ought to be the title of a frightening B movie or something. But it happens. And it happens as a byproduct of something we've all done or had done to us. So I think it's important to talk about. Perhaps some of you are aware of the term soul loss, which is, in shamanic terms, refers to a piece of the soul that separates from us during, for instance, when we experience a traumatic event. And it can leave us feeling less than whole. Well, because we are less than whole. We've lost a piece of ourselves in that traumatic experience. And some of us never fully recover from it. Never feel whole again, not truly whole, unless, of course, we can coax that piece of our soul that is left at the traumatic moment to return to us and be reintegrated. Now, some of us have lost many pieces over the years because some of us have had more traumatic lives than others. No wonder that many of us feel less than ourselves or feel like we have an emptiness that we just can't fill with something. Soul stealing is similar in that we still lose a piece of our soul, or we take a piece of someone else's soul, but it doesn't happen through a personal trauma. In fact, it's happening to all of us all the time, and it usually happens without any awareness on our part. Doesn't change how it affects us, though. So whether you're the stealer or the victim, you are forever affected, unless you retrieve that piece that someone else took from you, or release that piece of someone else's soul that you took. Now, this is not a threefold thing, so don't go there. This is not about the threefold, okay? It's because your soul cannot harmoniously exist with a piece of someone else's attached to it. Duh! Housing a piece of someone else's soul along with yours just creates a toxic environment for both of you. Oh, I'm a good person, you say. I would never steal someone else's soul. Yeah, you are a good person. And it still happened. And that person who stole a piece of yours is likely a good person too. Maybe even your mate or your best friend. But it still happened. And it may keep happening unless you become aware of it. Now, there are many ways this happens, but here's a common one. Think back, was there ever a time when you looked at someone else and thought, why do they get to look that way? Why do they get to have those things and I don't? It's just not fair. In that moment of longing for something that existed in their soul's experience, you grabbed a piece of their soul trying to make those qualities your own. Like the Russian proverb says, envy sees the sea, but not the rocks. If we truly knew another's struggles, we would likely never long for their life, or anything they have for that matter. Envy and jealousy has been the focus of many a proverb throughout the centuries, and carried many a warning from the mystics as well. Like, envy shoots at others and wounds itself. Envy eats nothing but its own heart. Anyway, it's not just the result of jealousy and envy, though, that we lose and gain pieces of souls. Other times, you may have had a piece of your soul stolen by someone who was just in a low state, such a low state that they were drawing life-sustaining energy from you. It was an unconscious act of self-preservation, no harm intended, but perhaps they took a piece anyway, because they needed it. And perhaps you even gave it willingly. Maybe you sent them that energy because you thought they needed it at the time to help them through a difficult time. And you sent it from such a deep place of care and concern that a piece of your own soul was given as well. You could have taken it from others in the same way. So just as it's powerful as a healing practice to release past life and generational and ancestral traumas, it's perhaps even more immediately healing to release the pieces of other souls you have stolen and regain our own pieces. Before this starts sounding like a Christian pulpit or something, let's get on with the magic, which is the process of returning to wholeness, bringing back all the parts that belong to us and releasing the parts that don't. Just another one of the pleasures of being a witch. Most people go through life, and this has happened to them as well. They just can't do anything about it, and they don't even have an awareness. We are some of the privileged few, actually, who can not only have an awareness, but do something about it. So, as with all magic, there are many ways of accomplishing this. I find my pendulum makes fast, easy work of it. But there's a lot of other ways to accomplish the task as well. Another one of my favorites is a version of cord cutting that can be used for this. So in follow-up to episode 4, where we talked about the holographic universe principle, either of these ways, and many others, can make use of that principle. Since the pendulum version is so quick, I think we have time to demonstrate both, or at least to talk about both. So, join me now for this process if it suits you, or take notes, or listen to this part again later when you're in a better position to do your spell work. If you're a seasoned dowser, now you likely will drop into that altered state that connects you to the wisdom of the universe by muscle memory. If not, it does take a little practice, so traditional spell work version will not only offer you some tools, but may be more comfortable for you. But options are good, right? Now, grab your pendulum. If you use charts, you will only need a numbers chart, 1 through 10, or for faster results, perhaps a 1 through 100. A scale is also nice. I like a -10 to a +10, but it's not necessary. In fact, the chart at all isn't necessary. Okay, so now that you've got your pendulum and you're in that state of connectedness, you're going to ask your pendulum some questions like the following. Start with, have I taken pieces of anyone else's soul that still need to be released at this time? You'll probably get a yes, especially if you've never cleared this before. Now, how many do I currently have? Now, if you're using a chart numbered from 1 to 10, then you will probably need to ask for the first digit and then the second digit. Are there more digits? You might get 5, 14, 20, 57, 157. I don't know what you'll get, but whatever it is, then take that resulting number and confirm. So, is 14 the correct number? You'll get a yes or a no. The next thing I like to do is get a baseline for how it's impacting me. So ask over your scale, to what extent am I being impacted by the presence of these pieces, with 0 being optimal for my soul's level? You're going to get your baseline number. And then I like to ask, am I ready to release these pieces that do not belong to me? Undoubtedly, you'll get a yes because you're here doing the spell work with that intention. You must have been ready. If you get a no, you have a little bit of internal investigation to do. Now you're going to swing your pendulum, intentionally this time, in a circular motion, saying something like, accept my apology for the harmful feelings toward you. I hereby release my hold on that part of your soul which I have been holding on to. I release it directly to the universe, requesting that the universe determine when the time is right, in your highest good, that it be returned to you. And I ask that all open wounds on both sides be fully and compassionately healed in the process. Now you're going to allow your pendulum to continue circling on its own, and it will continue circling as the clearing and releasing process occurs. When it stops circling, it's done. You want a confirmation. You're going to ask, have all soul pieces not belonging to me been returned to the universe? If no, you're probably going to want to ask how many remain and release them again and retest. Now, with 0 being optimal, to what extent am I now being affected by those pieces of other souls that were attached to me? If it's not 0, ask something like, will the remainder of the healing occur on its own? Because sometimes it takes a little bit of time to heal those attachment points, especially depending on how long they've been there. Okay, so now you're going to do the same thing about retrieving your missing pieces. You're going to determine how many pieces are missing, to what extent on the scale that you're being impacted by these missing pieces to get a baseline, and then ask whether they are ready to be returned to you. If no, then ask if they're ready to be returned to the universe, where they can be returned to you automatically at the most appropriate time for your optimum safety, well-being, and happiness. Now, you're going to call all those pieces back to you, again from that circular swinging motion. As each piece of my soul is being released from its holder and returned to me, smooth and heal that open wound on both sides, mine and theirs, with compassion, self-love, worthiness, and the knowledge that I harbor no ill will toward you. Wishing you only the same wholeness as for myself. When the circular motion stops, it's been accomplished. Mote it be. Then ask if I have retrieved all of my soul pieces. Test for your current level of impact. You're done. Knowing it's been accomplished. Now, you should feel the difference immediately. Immediately. Now, you'll continue to feel that integration and the healing over the next few days, week or so perhaps, but you should feel an instant difference. Now, for the more traditional spell style version, you're going to find a comfortable place to sit where you won't be disturbed, like you usually do when you're doing spell work. Now, your altar or sacred space would be perfect for this, as it will likely already be conditioned for you to connect to that altered state in a relaxed and focused way. Consider some nice theta or delta binaural beats playing as well during your spell work. Now, there are some good ones pre-made that are available out there for your use, or you can make your own with a tone generator. I may go ahead and place a link in the description of one of my personal favorites in case you're interested. This one I'm thinking of uses a cello to create that rather than a tone generator, so really nice touch. Also, if you're not familiar with binaural beats, remember that to receive the optimum effects of a binaural, the opposing tones must be heard in each ear separately. This allows the brainwave to create the difference between those two tones, all by itself. So headphones are best. That's how you get the effects of entraining your brainwaves to a hertz frequency that's below human audibility. When the difference between the tone in the right ear and the tone in the left ear is that brainwave state you want to entrain to. Okay, mystery solved? Now you got it. Okay, so feel free to pause this episode and gather whatever correspondences, candles, representations of the elements, or any other accoutrements you find meaningful to this process. If you need any ideas, ask in the comments and we'll have a conversation about it. Anyway, take a moment to plan, pull what you need, and then come back and rejoin us. Oh, by the way, you also will probably want maybe a sacred blade or an imaginary one or a feather for the cord cutting. Now, I personally prefer the feather. I find it to be sharper. It cuts not only with more precision, but with more compassion, allowing for better healing of the severed wounds, because we don't want to leave those babies open, seeking to reconnect to something or just bleed out energy, right? Okay, so whenever you're ready, your things are gathered, come back and start from here. Okay, you're back. Now, cast your circle or whatever protections you feel are needed for your practice. Now, as most of you know, I don't feel the need, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't if you feel the need. Go back and revisit episode 1 if you want a little more insight on that. Okay, so as you sit in your chosen sacred space, perhaps the music is playing, your candles are lit, and you've dropped into that relaxed, focused state. Your body knows what it feels like. Just let it go there. Now, once you're there, allow your mind to go deep inside, seeking a warm, compassionate place deep in your heart space. Now, I do a lot of magic work from my heart space, and if you don't, you might consider it. It's a wonderful place to find that really high vibration that helps me accomplish what I want to. So maybe think of this like the Fantastic Voyage, where you're shrinking down to the cellular or molecular level and traveling in your mind to the most loving, compassionate heart cell you find there. It'll be the one that's glowing, most inviting, most alive feeling. Now expand that cell in your mind, moving deep into the loving warmth of that cell or atom. Knowing that this is your body and that you're perfectly safe. Knowing that that cell and every other cell in your body has energetic links to information that is shared with every other living thing in the universe, every other thing in the universe. And that the information of anything that is known by another is available to you at this moment. Now start by filtering the information of your past, bringing to mind anyone who you have felt jealous or envious of, current or past, or anyone that you have sought out for energy during a time of hardship or trial, tough times. As each name or face or awareness comes to mind, consciously and lovingly say something like, "Please accept my apology for my harmful feelings toward you. Know that they weren't intentional. I didn't mean to harm you, and I hereby release my hold on that part of your soul which I have been holding on to. I release it directly to the universe, requesting that when the time is right for your highest good, it be returned to you by the wisdom of the universe." Now repeat this for each person or circumstance that comes to mind. And when all in your awareness have been released, maybe add a blanket statement, something like, "I hereby release to the universe any remaining pieces of any other souls I have taken as a result of my thoughts or actions, intentional or not, so that the universe in its infinite wisdom can return each piece to its rightful owner when it is in their best interest to receive them." Now, returning to that state of connectedness, to all the information of the universe, bring to mind anyone who might have been jealous or envious of you in the past, or sought your energy to help them through some tough times. As these souls come to mind, remember they don't know they have these pieces and likely never intended to take them. Gently wave your feather or whatever device you're using, allowing the soft, compassionate edge to separate the energetic cords which hold that piece of your soul bound to theirs. Now, as that piece of your soul falls away from theirs, gently returning home to you, fill that space in them, that severed area, that open place, with self-love and worth. As your missing piece returns to you, gently reintegrating back to your soul, notice as the largeness of your soul absorbs the missing pieces, embracing them and healing any wounds that they've suffered in their absence. Continue the process for each one who comes to your awareness. And then maybe add that blanket statement to return any remaining pieces and heal both sides of any others you were not consciously made aware of, with love, compassion, and completeness for all. When you're finished, rest for just a few quiet moments, welcoming, loving, and fully integrating your more complete soul. Knowing that you now have more capacity for love, self-love, wisdom, compassion for others, moving forward than you have in the past. knowing that you're now more capable of living your best life, the one your soul intended. So relax, just gazing lovingly into that glowing candle flame until it burns out, or close your ceremony in whatever way seems appropriate to you. Take a deep integrating breath and fully return to the present moment. Okay, how do you feel? You should feel fantastic, more complete, more whole, more empowered to live your best life and be your best self in the process. So, last step, remember to record this ceremony in your BOS, your Book of Shadows, if you have one, and I hope you do. Or like mine, it's called a bowl of wisdom and light. Because I don't really do as much with the shadow. Anyway, shadow work is a whole nother matter, and we want to get to that one day too. But today, let's wrap this up by saying, don't be surprised if you receive a surprise message or phone call or voice from the past, maybe more than one, sometime in the next week, few days, few weeks, and know that your connection was made and appreciated. So now that you've released what's not yours and integrated back what is, how do you keep it from happening again? How do you keep your soul from being stolen in the future or from taking someone else's? Well, be aware, for one thing. Be aware that it's happening. Notice when someone else is needing more of your energy than you're comfortable giving. And be aware of your own intentions at a deeper level. Hold your energetic boundaries. Now, you can still support them. You can still support someone else in a meaningful way. Just give them that deep healing energy as a hollow bone by letting it flow to them from the universe rather than from yourself. Because the energy from the universe, well, that's infinite and doesn't take from you at all. So no matter what you do, though, sometimes we just give too much of ourselves. We give too deeply. And when that happens, as soon as you feel that you've given too much, you can ask them right then to give it back. Maybe something like, I am so concerned for you. It feels like I may have given a piece of my soul to you to try and help you, but I'm so sorry that really won't serve you well. Will you release it back to me and let me give you something that will serve you better? If it's yes, take their hand. Give them that universal energy instead, through you, but not from you. If they refuse, or it's uncomfortable to ask, then I would silently ask their higher self to return it to you, knowing that retaining it will harm both of you. If you don't realize it's happened until later, and sometimes that happens, you can perform your release retrieval ritual as soon as you realize it or suspect it. The longer you hold that piece that doesn't belong to you or have a piece missing, the more impactful it will be for both of you. Now, in the days or weeks to come, I'd be interested to hear your experiences with this and the process and maybe how you adapt it to your personal style. Because we're all living and learning and growing, and you might have a great idea I never thought of. So please share it. And until next week, live your best life with magic.